I'm waiting for my presenters to log in. Just confirmed with them a few minutes ago.
Hello.
There's Giselle.
Hi. Thank
Hi.
you so much. I'm gonna need 1 minute really quick, if you don't
Okay,
mind. So that way I let people kind of sign up. In the meantime,
okay.
I'm recording the participants. I would love to be able to get a list of who is participating today and from
Yes,
where.
I'll send you the list of the attendees.
Okay. And would you be able to let me know like what shelter or agency they're representing?
Most people, it's in their emails.
Okay.
Email address is includes what shelter they're with. If there's any questions, you can just send me an email and I'll sort that out for you.
Okay, perfect. Give me just 1 or 2 minutes and we're gonna start.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, looks like we've got most of the people that registered have signed in, and our host is signed in. We are waiting on her to get a couple of things together. So we'll get started shortly.
Okay, thank you for your patience.
Are we good to go?
We are good to go. We're good to go.
Okay, everybody, this is Giselle Danger with JCPS. She is our expert on McKinney Vento and rights of students who are unhoused. So I'm going to turn it over to her and let her give us all this wonderful information.
Well, thank you for that wonderful introduction. My name is Giselle Danger, and I work with the Department of Access and Opportunity in JCPS. Our department works with students that are eligible for under two different categories. One is McKinney Vento. We rather use the word McKinney Vento because it really gave us an opportunity to really explain to families what homelessness is for a school system. But in addition to that, it's a word that is less threatening for a lot of our families rather than calling families homeless. The other area or the other focus of our work is also working with foster care students, and that is why I have my colleague Anissa Lanier here. She's going to introduce herself and give you a sneak peek of what she does. We do believe that talking about homelessness and foster care together is super important because we do see a lot of mobility between families entering the system as homeless and many times unfortunately ending up in the foster care system, We also see families that have been in foster care or students that have been in foster care that end up being homeless, unfortunately. And working together allows to prevent some of the families from entering foster care system and providing better support. So let me let you meet Anissa.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys. And we're so glad to be able to share this information with you guys and to partner with you guys as we serve families. So my name is Anissa Lanier. I am the foster care liaison, but if anybody asks me, I will tell you that we support all highly mobile students in the district, especially with regard to their federal rights for educational protection. And so we're gonna get into our presentation here.
A lot of the presentation that we have prepared for you guys will follow a simple format. So I would like to start by saying that the first thing that I want to make sure everyone understand is what will be making somebody McKinney Vento eligible. So the eligibility is really important for you to understand because it's really broad. Many times people assume that they have a pretty good understanding of what the eligibility for homelessness is. However, the hard definition is different from the definition that we use in the school system. So it is important that we go over that. And also the information that you are about to receive is based on a federal law. So this information will apply to students living in the United States, no matter what state. So when we think about the word homeless, probably most people are going to understand what a homeless student or a homeless family is based on the homeless hard definition, meaning they are unhoused, they do not have a place to live, they might be living in the street. That's what most people will assume, right? Living in the street, living in a shelter, living in maybe in their cars. That only represent a very small percentage of our homeless families identified in the school system. About 70% of our families that are identified as homeless, they follow under being homeless because of their doubling up or they're living as a guest in somebody else's house. So I'm gonna let that sink in for a second. So about 70% of our families that are eligible for McKinney Vento services, they live in a house. It's not their house, it's temporary. Many times they will tell you that they are living with their family member, their friends. Many times they don't consider themselves homeless, even themselves. So that is why you have to become an expert on understanding their situation so you can assess if they are eligible under the federal definition of homelessness for school systems. So about 70% of our families in JCPS follow under doubling up with friends or relatives due to economic hardship. Now, it is important, that second part. Some families live together because it's convenient. Some families might live together because it's their cultural background, like that's how they do things. I'm from Cuba, so I know that we grow up in Cuba in multi-generational homes, and it was not necessarily because of lack of housing, but it was a lifestyle. It was the way that we provide a good support system, etc. Now, many times we see a combination for our immigrant communities. It is part of their culture. They don't see anything wrong with that. It's something that works for them. They embrace living together, but also at the same time, they will not be able to afford living on their own. So those are the follow-up questions that sometimes I ask to determine if a family is living or is eligible for McKinney Vento services under school districts or not. So some of the questions that I ask is like, tell me about your housing situation. Is this supposed to be temporary or is this permanent? Do you feel like you have enough room in the house? Tell me about, do you have any restrictions? Because many times when you are a guest in somebody else's house, they will tell you what part of the house you can use, when you can use the kitchen, if you're even allowed to use the kitchen, if you have a requirement as far as at what time you can come into the house, at what time you need to leave the house. So in your conversation with families, it will be easy to identify if the family has any legal right of, staying in the house or not. I'm gonna be checking on the chat. So if any questions come up as I'm talking, feel free to put them in the chat and I'm gonna try to address them. Because I know that some of the questions typically center around eligibility. I do have a PowerPoint, and I'm going to try to put it in, but I do believe that, having this dialogue is super important. So far we have talked about when a family is on your radar because they're calling the Coalition for the Homeless, they don't have a place to stay, they are technically homeless on their HUD because they need a shelter, they are automatically eligible for our McKinney Vento services in the school district. So our most likely people that are going into family shelters, they are already McKinney Vento. I do want you to know the full extent of who will be eligible for us, because some of the families that exit your services or that stay with you, after you place them in temporary housing, or they will continue to be eligible under our services, okay? So we also have families living in hotels and motels. They are also automatically homeless under a federal definition of homelessness because that is a living situation that is not meant to be long-term. And many times the hotels and motels do not have the standard things that you will need to be able to survive in a house, right? They might not have a full kitchen, etc. Now there's always room for specific cases that will be out of the norm. For example, we recently have a mom that she was residing in an Airbnb, very similar situation as a hotel, but she was there because she was waiting for her house to be finalized. So the house was getting constructed. She had a specific day that she would be moving into her new house, and she felt like she was making event at that point. That was not the case. She went from one house to the next one. She had already a plan, etc. So there is a distinction between a housing situation in which you have to live in a hotel because that's the only place where you can stay, versus your house is getting constructed, you have a specific day, and then so in that particular case we did not identify the family as McKinney Vento eligible. A long time ago we also had a family that lived in a hotel, but they were asking if they could be considered McKinney Vento, but the family owned the hotel. So I don't think that we're gonna get many of those cases, but I wanna make sure that I always leave room for you to ask those extra questions. More than likely, 90% of the time, you're gonna be able to get through this question really easily. So we also have families living in cars, and we have families that jump from place to place, from family member to a shelter, then they're going back to a family member's house, etc. So anytime that you see high instability, they are McKinney Vento eligible. Families living in transitional shelters and transitional programs, like for example, families that are in the, I forgot, it left me for a second.
Family Scholar House.
Family Scholar House, thank you, Anissa. They are eligible also because it's considered a transitional placement. So some of those are the main things that we deal with when it comes down to who is eligible for homeless services. Because we live in a very diverse city, I want to also touch that we have a high number of homeless students that are also immigrants, refugees. Refugees are immigrants that come into the country due to a specific safety concern that they have. Some of them are running away from persecution, violence, etc. When that happens, we identify them as McKinney Vento eligible the first year automatically. So as you can see, our definition of homeless is really broad, and that allows to provide support in a very effective way. Because I told you that I will tell you information about foster care, I don't want to leave out, our foster care students. Eligibility for foster care, of course, we know that DCBS, the Cabinet for Children and Family, are the ones that determine if a student enter or exit the services, the child protect, the DCBS services, if they enter or exit foster care system. So we do receive information from the Cabinet for Children and Family, and they let us know about students that come into care or exit care. And so that is how we identify their eligibility for services. I want to talk about timeline. So a student might experience homelessness for a day, 2 days, 3 days during the school year. And that does not mean that they only receive McKinney Vento support and rights for 1, 2, or 3 days. So let me explain what I mean by that. So if you have a homeless student, our homeless eligibility process, when we start every year, we start identifying homeless students on July 1st. So July 1st is the first day of the academic year for us, where we start identifying homeless students for that particular academic year. And we will continue to identify students all the way until June 30th. So we are constantly identifying students that are homeless. But once we identify a student as homeless, after July 1st, they will continue to receive services as McKinney Vento eligible all the way to June 30th, even if they secure housing. That is really important. And that is really good for the law and protection for students, because we know that it takes 4 to 6 months of academics for students to recover from homelessness or mobility. So that is why the law takes into consideration that they have to provide a more broader time for support and for rights. So if you have a student that is in your caseload, so let's say that you work at Wayside and you have a family that have been with you from July 1st through, let's say, August 1st. And then they move into permanent housing. Because the student was eligible and we identify them, they will continue to receive services the entire academic year, even though they have secure housing. Any questions so far about that? And that includes all the services that we have available for any other student, including transportation. And we're going to talk about services in a second, but I want to make sure that we are clear on eligibility before moving on to rights of students. And please feel free to ask any questions. If there is a facilitator and you feel like there's some things that we need to clarify, feel free to jump in and let us know. And we have the first comment here. Let me say, how kids are identified? Great question. So every single school has an identify a school homeless liaison and a school foster care liaison. Those are administrators identified by the school principal, and they serve as the liaison between our department and the school. I will say 60% of the time we identify homeless students through a collaboration with a school. However, we have strong partnership with shelters, and they also let us know once they have a student in their shelter. I'll give you an example. So we also have collaboration, and we have data agreement with the Coalition for the Homeless, and that allows to identify students that have requested shelters, and so we can provide them with services. So how we identify, I would say 60% direct referrals from school. Some of the families are the greatest advocate, and they understand McKinney Vento and they tell other families. And we also have agreements with other agencies. As an agency, as a social work provider, social service advocate for students and families, you can feel free to identify eligible families and let us know. How we confirm eligibility? It depends. We don't question when the information comes from the school because they have received training and they have the authority to identify homeless students. So if the referral comes directly from a trained liaison, we take their word and we identify the family and we provide services. If the referral comes from a source like a shelter, we also trust your word because it's your client. It's coming from you as an authorized social worker, an authorized, provider. When the information comes from the Coalition for the Homeless, of course, we also take the referral. Some people will say, well, some people might take advantage of the system. We have by law the ability to question eligibility if we feel the family might not be honest, but we don't see that actually. What we typically see is an eligible family that is so ashamed about their situation that they might give so little information that we might not have enough information to identify them as eligible. Very few occasions we have families in which we feel like they might not be giving us the full information to receive services. And in those cases, we have a specific process that is called a dispute process. We go through a full investigation to determine eligibility. And we don't use that resource lightly because what we want to make sure is that we're providing a safety net for families. We make sure that families and schools do not threaten families with questions or over questioning, especially when families have felt empowered enough to share their situation and request support. Once a student is identified, we can have this collaboration. For example, BOA, once they, they know that a family has been identified as McKinney Vento, they will request support from us. They will say, hey, this family needs transportation. We are in need of a certified teacher because now in our shelter, we had this many students coming and going and they have barriers to their education. So it is important for you to help us identify students because at the end of the day, it's not about counting homeless students. We know they're there. We know that because of the stigma, more than likely that we are under-identifying families, but it's all about services that they receive once they are eligible. If you have a release of information in your agency with your clients, and you can provide that, you can then call us back and say, hey, can you give me more information? Can you tell me if they have been identified? And of course, I always welcome ideas for partnership on how to better improve the identification and support process. And yes, I will send this presentation later. I have it. I'm trying to figure out how to share my screen. Give me just 1 second. I'll try to figure it out, but at the same time, I don't want to delay the presentation either. So far we have talked about eligibility and eligibility period. And now what I want to turn your attention to is once a student is eligible, what type of protection they get. So in a lot of the questions that we receive center around education because we are in a school system, right? So our main support, the main support that we provide for families, providing school stability while facing homelessness. So we don't focus a lot on trying to find in shelters because we know we have awesome partners. We don't focus on providing hotel accommodations. That's not our target service that we provide. What we deal with mainly is educational stability and educational advocacy in the way of if a student is homeless, we want to make sure that they have at least consistency in their education. So the law provides for students that are homeless a specific rights so they don't have to change schools. So once a student is homeless, they get to stay in the same school no matter where they live in the city. And they can stay in that particular school that is now considered school of origin. Once a student is identified as homeless, that school where that student has been attending becomes what we call a school of origin, and then the student is eligible to stay in that school regardless of how many times the student had to move in or out of their address. So no matter where they live, they will continue to be eligible to stay in the same school with transportation. Transportation is the biggest barrier for school stability, so I want to address it, but at the same time, I want to be transparent about who handles transportation. So we handle eligibility for transportation, and we are the liaison between you or the family and the transportation department because we need to certify their eligibility for transportation services. However, the transportation department is the one that will determine what type of transportation the student can get. A lot of our students will be served through buses or vans, JCPS, school buses or vans. Other students will be served through TAR tickets, through mileage reimbursement, and through third-party providers. Last year, we used Uber extensively because we have families that moved so much that we did not even have the opportunity to set up buses for them. So because transportation is such a barrier, and we do receive so many requests for support for transportation, I want to give you the opportunity to think about if you have any questions in regard to transportation that I can address right now. In the meantime, I will give you a tip that is important for you to share with your families. As you assess eligibility, as you discuss with families, what are your plans for the upcoming year, let families know if they are experiencing homelessness, they get to stay in the same school that the student attended the previous year. So if a student was going to Blue League last year, and now due to housing instability, now they're living in a shelter, they don't have to leave Blue League because they are protected by law. In order for that right to kick in, you need to let us know. The family needs to let us know. That can be an email coming from you to us. That can be the family talking to the school homeless liaison. Every single school has a school homeless liaison. And then at that point, you can also request transportation. Again, transportation more than likely is going to be provided by a bus or a van, but not always the transportation department is able to secure a bus or a van. And that is when you're going to see other alternative transportation. Now the transportation department is setting up already routes for the upcoming year. So I would recommend families to don't wait until, it gets closer to the beginning of the school year. They can start requesting their transportation now, start making sure that they are identified. It is a misunderstanding for some of the families. They feel like if they were identified as homeless last year and their situation has not changed, that they do not need to communicate with us anymore. We had to recertify eligibility every year. And even if their situation has not changed, probably the questionnaire is going to be or the interview to assess eligibility is going to be very short, but we still had to ask those questions and have those documented assessment. So please do communicate with families. If they tell you, oh yes, they provided with services, so I should be eligible, they need to make sure that we know their situation. We start from zero every year. Last year, the last day of our count was June 30th, and we have about 4,000 homeless students. And right now our list is very close to zero. So what I'm saying is they could be 4,000 students, assuming that they are eligible. So yes, we had to re-identify eligibility every year. And that does not mean that we will ask every single family if a family was homeless last year, their situation hasn't changed, the eligibility process or the recertification will be really easy. If the information comes from you, it's going to be even faster. What has worked very good in the past is when a shelter, for example, and I'm using shelter a lot, but there are other agencies that are not shelter that also are super engaged with supporting our homeless students. When they send us a list and they're like, Giselle, all these families qualify under McKinney Vento, they are living here in our shelter, or they are doubling up with family or friends. They send me a full list and I will make sure not only that they get identified, but if they even send me the address, I can go ahead and request transportation. So we are always a step away from supporting families. We just need to collaborate. Of course, sometimes if you want to go in detail about services provided to the student, you definitely will need a release of information at that point. But that is the main thing that we do for the students, making sure that they get access to a school stability. And that probably is where we spend most of our time. And even though I can explain it in like 5 minutes, it takes advocacy, because it means that schools that have been told that families need to provide proof of address, that they had to provide certain documents, that they had to live in certain areas to go to certain school, they pretty much had to be retrained to provide specific services based on McKinney Vento eligibility. So a lot of our work is to make sure that schools are implementing these specific laws for these specific vulnerable students. Another thing that we do is making sure that we provide support for them academically. We have a spring, summer programs available. We're working on ACT prep opportunities for students. We have many opportunities, scholarship opportunities dedicated to homeless students, summer programs. So it is important that you know, if you want to be part of our communication list with external partners, that you let me know your information, because I feel like we work really well with the same people over and over again. But I feel that there are many other providers that are doing great work and they just haven't been connected at the level of other agencies. So what I'm saying is, once you do registration, if you can let me know, please, if you will want to be part of our communication list, please do let me know. That way you will receive information when we have a spring, summer opportunity, scholarship opportunities, etc. Some of the families that you work with, they are facing barriers at the school level that are not necessarily related to something that I had talked to you about, but you might be able to contact us for support. Let me give you an example. We have in the past support students that have dealt with, let's say that they have been sent to truancy court. Because they were facing homelessness. They did not know that they have access to school stability. They did not access their rights, and we have been able to advocate for students. Of course, at the same time, we always, once we reduce those barriers, we make sure that families do understand. And I see I would like to be part of the communication list. I'm gonna try to keep tab on people. Thank you. So we want to make sure that you know that. So we do a lot of advocacy. We do a lot of support when students are referred to be exit out of what we call really good programs, like magnet programs, traditional programs. We are part of the advocacy group for students. If a student is facing barriers at school that you feel are linked to their homeless situation, please do let me know. Because our advocacy is not just making sure that they are in schools, but they are also well served in schools. If you have a student that due to homelessness, they enter the school in the middle of the school year and they are talented, but they have not been given opportunities for a specific assessments, for specific opportunities for sport, after school activities, let us know, because those are things that we can help with. One thing is to provide access to have a school stability, but what we want is extend that to having a good access to all the services provided at the school. So we talk about transportation, we talk about some of the things that we do with academics and advocacy. Another thing that we do it based on needs and available resources. We do work a lot to make sure the families and the students get the services that they need, like reducing barriers. We have uniforms, school supplies available, shoes available. We have a great partnership with the Closing Assistance Program, and homeless students get double items than any other student in the district. So please do make sure that you communicate with us so we can put you in contact with people at the district level that can help you with those resources. Also, many times we have hygiene items, school supplies item. Many times we provide those directly to the schools so the school can distribute them. But if you feel like a student really needs a specific support, beginning of the school year is the best time to tell me, hey, Giselle, normally my agency serve about 20 students. It will be nice if we could have 10, 20 uniforms here available. That way, when students come through our shelter, through our agency, they can go into school knowing that they have this uniform available. So those are some of the things that we have done in the past. We also serve as a liaison between you and navigation of JCPS. JCPS is a big district. And many times knowing the right person, the right department take you a long time. So many times for agencies that work in collaboration with us, they contact us, and the problem really is not something that we can address directly, but we can point them in the right direction. If the families need a special education, for example, if they need a special accommodation, if the student is facing a sickness and they need a 504 plan, so that way their medical necessities are taken care of at the school level, we can help you through that process. Might not be us directly, but we can guide you in the process. If you have students that are applying for early childhood, and we know that there's a lot of paperwork related to being part of early childhood program, we can help you navigate through those systems, because the law also says that if students are homeless and foster care, they need to be accepted in school, even if they are missing paperwork. So we try to make sure that we're using the language and the authority that the law provides us to make sure that we can advocate for students. Any questions so far about some of the things that I have said? Okay. Some of you are gonna start seeing more and more clients that speak other languages. We do have a language service department in JCPS, so I will be more than glad to serve as your liaison if you ever feel like there is a lack of or limited support that you can provide to your families with children in JCPS due to language barriers. So I can help you with that if you ever need support on that. I feel our city demographics many times is no matching services available. So if we can be part of the solution when it comes to that, also keep us in mind. Anissa, do you feel that we're missing anything that you will want to talk about before you talk about foster care and why we work in collaboration?
No, I think you've done a pretty good job with that. I just want to encourage you to just really hone into what Giselle was saying about us being a liaison between you guys and other parts of JCPS, and to really encourage your families to advocate for themselves and try to get as much school level support, because we are district level staff, and it is better for the school that they attend to be really involved in what's going on with the family and to know what's going on with their kids, especially when they're in a situation where they're already dealing with homelessness. And the other thing that I don't know if I heard you say, Giselle, is that, and I think it's really important, is that, like you gave the example about Blue Lick, that the family doesn't have to change schools, but they can if they want to. And it's really important that the family is able to make that decision. Because sometimes families will want to change schools because they, for whatever reason, they may not want their kids far away from them, but it is the family's decision to make. And what we don't want is for people to influence their decision or make them feel like they have to, that it is their right to make that decision.
And I see a question that is asking about our contact information. I'm sharing the PowerPoint. I don't know why I'm unable to pull it, but I'm sharing the PowerPoint. It will give you all the information that I'm providing right now and our contact information. I'm also gonna add the liaison in each school. That way you feel like you can tell families if they are dealing with any situation at a specific school, who they should be contacting at the school level. That does not mean that we will not interfere if needed. I feel like more is better. So that is one thing that I will say on that.
We will make sure that everybody that has participated today, that was in on the call, gets the materials. The Zoom gives me everybody's emails, and so I'll make sure that Giselle gets that information and can send it out to you.
Perfect. Another thing that helps us a lot is agencies. Many times you have a dedicated person that work mainly with educational resources. It will be really great if you can let us know who that person is for your agency, because many times we will want to let you know about specific services, a scholarship opportunity, but we do not have the right contact at the right agency. And many times in social service, like many other services right now, schools included, there is a high mobility in, you know, people leave, new employees come through. So it is important that you keep us up to date. That way we can provide the best opportunity. And again, I'm gonna say one more time what Anissa just said, because yes, it is right. We always want a school stability, pushing a school stability, because we know how bad it is for a student to go from one school to the next one. It's not just academic content that they miss, but also their safety networks, students that have a special education, their IEP or individualized plan might look the same on paper, but the implementation may vary from one school to the next one. However, like Anissa said, families are the expert in their own situation, and many times they know if it is time for them to change school. Now, I want to dismiss a myth that said that homeless students get to pick and choose a school. They do not. If a student is facing homelessness and they no longer want to attend their school of origin, they can be enrolled and complete a cluster application based on the address where they are staying at that moment. Even if it's a shelter, even if it's a family member's home, they do not have to provide proof of address, but their assignment will be based on their address. So they cannot specifically pick one school and say, I want to go to this particular school.
And that includes, like, even with the shelter addresses, because we'll see it where the family knows, let's say that Giselle and I both live at the same shelter and Giselle's kids go to one school, and then I want my kids to go to the same school that Giselle's school kids go to. You don't have that option. You do have a right to use the shelter address to do an application, but you don't have a right to choose which school your kids are going to be assigned to in the cluster. That is done by student assignment. And we really don't have a legal authority to go in and designate a specific school after student assignment has made an assignment. Does that make sense? Does anybody have any questions about that?
And we do work really closely with the student assignment department. Many times they are the ones referring students to us. Homeless students or homeless families can apply for a school transfer and pick a specific school and apply to see if that transfer will be granted. But we, under the McKinney Vento law, cannot secure that placement. We many times work together with the school assignment office, with the transfer office, and many times we advocate for that if we believe it's in the best interest of the student for the request of the parent to be granted. However, we do not have the legal authority to, support any specific selection from a parent. So if a parent say, I wanted my child to go to, I feel that I'm picking on Blue League, Shelby Traditional. I cannot just say, okay, Shelby Traditional it is, because they are McKinney Vento eligible students. However, I will tell the family, go ahead and apply under the transfer. I will then communicate with the transfer office, and I can support that transfer if what the family is saying makes sense. Maybe is that Shelby is the best school, and they have many reasons why Shelby is the best school for their student. That does not mean that this school assignment office or the transfer office will grant their request. However, many times we do see them approving things just because they know they want to support the homeless families. They know that they experience a lot of issues and a lot of barriers that other families do not have to deal with. That does come with some responsibility. For example, when a family applies for a transfer, they are also saying that they are then responsible for transporting students to and from that particular school. So I want to make sure that I'm transparent on that as well. Okay. As we are kind of getting closer to, kind of the ending of the support or the presentation or the information that I wanted to share with you, I want to go over really quick to some of the things that I feel are the biggest takeaway from this conversation. One is the Office of Access and Opportunity in JCPS lead the support for highly mobile students, and that include homeless and foster care students. Our phone number and contact information will be provided to you through the presentation. We do monitor schools in their implementation of the law. So if you feel a school is not supporting families that you're working with, feel free to let us know so we can ensure that families are getting the services that they are eligible for. Every school have a school homeless liaison and foster care liaison identified by their school administrator. That is the best contact person when it comes to support right at the school level, but we work in collaboration with them. So never feel like you have to work only with that person. I will encourage you to do, because it will create a stronger, bigger support network for your families. So that is why I'm going to include that list in the presentation. School stability is very important for us. That is why we always assume that staying in the same school is in the best interest of the student. That is why transportation will be made available. We do not control transportation resources, but we do communicate with the transportation department, and we submit the transportation request from you to the transportation department. We have many resources available that extend beyond support with making sure that kids are in school. That include advocacy, that include academic support, scholarships, that you will only be able to access if you are part of our communication list, if you stay in communication with us. Is there any other thing?
That the resources and support that we offer does not include housing. And so that's one reason why we're so grateful to be here and speaking to you. And we want to increase our partnership, because you guys are more of our housing resources. So oftentimes we will refer our families to the Homeless Coalition and other community resources for that kind of housing support, because that's not what we do. We do provide educational resources.
And since I have a good number of people that care about homeless families, I will encourage you to also be an advocate beyond specific families. Many of the support that we provide, we're able to provide it because they come from, as mandate through federal. But there are many other things that you can do as advocacy that For example, when I go to board meetings and we're discussing a school assignment plan, transportation plans, and many other things, unfortunately, there is a lack of limited voices when it comes to support for homeless and foster care students, and we can change that. I believe that there is a way that between us, we can make sure that the needs of our foster care and homeless students are, are shared with our board members, with other people. So if you're part of our communication list, I'm going to give you also opportunity and information about when you can engage and participate in board meetings and share your experiences. It's really, really important for us to collaborate. I think that there is another question. Is there an office that families come to a lot? Well, we do have, our main office is located at CB Young, and that is right on Crittenden Drive. That is where we see a lot of our families. However, a lot of the support come directly at the school level. Many times we work in collaboration with the school. That does not mean that we do not see families here. We do encourage families to come. We do want families to be served also at the school level, because it is important for schools to also take ownership of, on their families and supporting their families. Those are their students too. So is there an office that family come a lot? In the past, we used to have two offices, one in the West End and the other one here at CB Young on Crittenden Drive. Right now, we only have the Crittenden Drive office. So if you ever feel like a family needs support, we can definitely schedule a meeting depending on the need of the families, and we are very flexible. Some of this meeting can be virtual, sometimes it's a phone call, sometimes the meeting start with us, but we have to involve other people in JCPS, so it's kind of case by case scenario. And I want to take the opportunity to say thank you to the Coalition for the Homeless. Many times they have led the effort when it comes to meeting with our superintendent, with our leadership to provide support and request support, and for our homeless students. I feel that now that we have a new superintendent, it's really important that we reignite that coalition of support for our students. That way the student needs do not continue to be a priority. When we talk about specific needs for students with special needs, I see a lot of families that will come and talk in front of the board, etc. And that happens with many other groups. Unfortunately, our homeless families, they are dealing with such a difficult circumstances that many times a school is not something that is at the top of their priority, but we can become that voice for them. And thank you for the opportunity. I feel like it is always great. We are like a social service agency within a school system. We cannot do our work without you guys. And we know JCPS is such a big system. We have done this work for a long time now. So we feel that we are in a good position to guide you through many of the challenges that you can experience within JCPS. So please make sure that you know that we're here for you as well.
Thank you, Giselle and Anissa. We really appreciate you making yourselves available to us today and giving us this extremely valuable information, because our homeless neighbors are extremely vulnerable, and their children are just an extra level of vulnerability. And so we need to make sure that we give them every opportunity that's out there. So again, thank you for making yourself available today. People have got your contact information, and I'll make sure that the notes get sent out to everyone. And this has been recorded, so anybody that was participating today, check back on the coalition's website in a couple of days if you want to rewatch this material and maybe pick up something that you think you might have missed or whatever, or reach out to Giselle and Anissa and let them know what you need help with. And so thank you, everybody, for coming today, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you. You all
Thank
have a
you.
good day.
Too.